Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? I'm Dawid Ostręga. I'm one of the mentors from Leaders Island. I'm really excited to be back with you on MobiConf. Had the pleasure of presenting last year. And as if any of you were there, then you heard me talk about the Kings and about the leadership failures and then the recovery from that. Today, I want to talk a little bit about, is winning luck, art, or preparation? Difficult question, easy question. Depends how you look at it. So let's dive right into it, and hopefully we can answer those questions. So firstly, building and leading a winning team. That I want to split into three parts. Building, leading, and winning. Those are three separate things. Each of them is done separately. So essentially, if there's nothing else that you take away from today's presentation about winning, and whether it's luck or preparation, then these three things are the most important things I'd like you to try and remember. It's the building, the leading, and the winning. Okay, so first we need to build a team. Okay, so and I'm going to give you some examples today, both from sports and also from business. And one of the crucial things, especially when listening to a presentation from me, is to open your mind and don't just think that I'm talking about sport. I'm using some sports analogies in order to make you understand and open up sort of these ideas and these concepts, because they are truly from business and used in business all the time. Building a team, a sports team, is exactly the same as building a team in business. Whether it's a team of programmers, a team of salespeople, or any other team, people are people, and that's the most important thing. Okay, so we have the aspect of building. We have the aspect of leading. You need to think about how you're going to lead the team. You need to be one of the the most important thing of being a leader is to be self-aware, is to understand who you are, how you're going to lead, what are your strong points, what are your weaker points, and how you like to lead and how you plan to lead. And this is a very important aspect of building a team. And then the last one is winning. You need to define what is winning. If you don't define what is winning, if you don't define what is your goal, then you're never going to achieve it. And this goes all the way from building a team and a long-term plan down to the smaller things like a sprint. You know, in every single sprint, we have a plan. We know what we have a definition of done for every single thing that we do, so that we know when it's completed. And it's the same thing when we're building a team, the same thing when we're then leading a team, is we need to define when are we done, when are we a success, so that we can celebrate it or make adjustments and improvements. So those are the three key things. So let's dive into them. Before that, maybe I should say a couple of things about me. Why am I here? Who am I? Why do I know anything about teams? Well, a couple of things about me. Business. As you can see on this presentation, I set up EPAM in Poland. I was the very first person to set up EPAM to build that team, because that's what it was at the very beginning. It was a team. Initially, we had to hire the first team for our client, who was UBS, and then build a full infrastructure around it. So a recruitment team, administration team, facilities, and everything else that went along to building a company that's well over 1,000 people strong now. So business is at the core of what I do. I've built many teams in business. Went on to IBM and did one of the biggest projects that IBM has in Europe. Built a team there that's nearly 1,000 people as well. It's about 800 people right now. That's running the Allianz project. Essentially, it was a huge project to take over the entire Allianz infrastructure, and IBM is now running that. Also, I built another SolarWinds. SolarWinds is also another company that I built here in Kraków, the Polish division of SolarWinds. A lot of you techies probably know it, especially if you work in tech ops, then you probably would have used some of SolarWinds tools. So build a team there as well. I was the very first person at SolarWinds in Poland, and I built that. Had the pleasure of building a team, restructuring team at SKK, which is a Polish company. We're doing some restructuring. Really cool sort of a company that was on the market for 20 years in Poland, that decided to change and move forward and become a little bit different, and created an R&D department. That was an awesome project in itself to build an R&D department. That's also another team that needs to be built with a particular way of working, with a particular culture, with a particular type of people that we needed to hire for that and to make it a success, which it was, because within the first 3 months we were able to bring the first MVP and the first product. We ended up creating 2 products, a software and a hardware product, simply because of the type of team that we're able to build. And all the way through to a company like Amazon. I had the pleasure of working at Amazon for a while, running a larger team of about 300 to 400 people that worked on Alexa and the voice recognition part of it, and the analysis of all the recordings. Apart from that, as you can see, Scouts. There's a picture of with the chief scout here in the presentation at the Jamboree, with the flag that we all fought for. This flag basically was gave us the title of the best scout troop in the world. That's something that I also built as another team, and you can see that proud team there that won the Jamboree. And this was a little bit different, because here we couldn't really decide to hire who we wanted to. We had a set of kids who were part of the team, who were part of the scout troop, and now we had to try and build the team, build the culture in order to win that championship, or to win that title of the best troop. Sort of my pride and joy is the Krakow Kings. As you can see here, that's a picture of the championship team and me in 2015 with the trophy when we went up to Gdańsk and won the national championship. Again, a slightly different type of team, purely a sports team. But the great thing about American football is it really shows diversity and a very diverse type of. Sorry about that. I've got an alarm going off. I'm sure we'll go off in a second. A very diverse type of team. Different people from different backgrounds, all bonding together around the goal to win a championship. Okay, so that's sort of a little bit of history around me and why I'm talking to you today. Okay, so let's get back to it. Building and leading a winning team. So I said to you that subject is very, very important. That tagline is very important because it gives you all 3 things you need to remember: the building, the leading, and the winning. So first of all, we start with the winning. It might sound a little bit strange that we're starting at the back, but we need to start with a definition of what are we trying to get, where are we going, what are we trying to obtain, and how will we define when we've reached it. If we don't define our goal, we will never reach it. So you need to define the goal for your team. And again, don't think that this is only, winning is only for a sports team. Okay, a sports team has defined a goal as a championship, but perhaps not. Perhaps the very first goal isn't to win a championship. Perhaps the very first goal is to build a particular culture. When I first took over the Krakow Kings, that was my main aim. It wasn't to win a championship. It was to build a particular culture. It's to build a culture of winning and to change the kind of culture that was at the team before. So that was my very first thing. That was my aim, and I started, and everything from there. Everything went from there, from the definition of the success, which will be a team that has a tradition of winning and that wants to win. It's the same thing with the teams in business. We need to decide what will be a win. Will it be delivering a product? Will it be reducing the number of tickets of a particular support function and that we have? We want to have them at a particular level, reduced by a significant measurable amount. Or perhaps a sales number that we want to try and reach. Whatever the team is, it needs whatever team we're putting together. We need to define what are we trying to obtain. And this also applies to when we're taking over a team, because it's not just about building a team. Sometimes we will get to build a team from scratch. Sometimes we will take over a team, and now we have to run it, and we have existing people within it. Either way, we have to start with the crucial part, which is defining what is winning. Okay. So, what is your goal? Okay, we need to define what is your goal. We also need to look at what is the company's goal, and then what is your team's goal. Sometimes those things aren't exactly dovetailed, aren't exactly hand in glove. They will be a little bit different. The goal of your team might be slightly different from the goal of your company. When I joined the Kings, the organization as a whole, which included many teams, which included the junior team and the senior team, and also the lacrosse team, the aim of the organization was to win championships. But my goal, as I said at the very beginning, was to build a particular culture within the senior team, a culture of winning. So those goals, yes, they're aligned because they'll eventually get us to a championship, but at the beginning they weren't exactly the same, but they were similar and they were driving towards a similar accomplishment. Okay, and also, you know, what is my personal goal? What are the personal goals of all the people within the team? We need to make sure that those are all in place. If we don't have goals, we can't strive towards them. We can't ever reach them, and that's a very, very important thing. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So if we don't prepare goals so that we have a way to get to them, then we're simply preparing to fail. So that's a very important part. We need to have those goals defined. Once you've done that, then we start leading. Okay. Once we know what our goals are, once we know where we're heading, what is our trajectory, then we need to define a culture. And this is the part of leading. How will we lead this team? So there are different ways of leading a team, and there isn't a single way that is the correct way. And very often that is the fundamental mistake that people make. They think that there is only one way. For example, it has to be collaborative. Authoritarian is bad. We don't want authoritarian. It goes out the window. Well, not necessarily. There are instances, there are times when authoritarian is going to be better than collaborative. When you, as the leader, will be authoritarian, will make the decisions as opposed to the team deciding or the team taking responsibility. Because the culture, collaborative versus authoritarian, doesn't just focus on you as the leader and how you're going to lead the team, but also where the responsibility is. Does the team take on all the responsibility, or does you as an individual take on all the responsibility? And it's a very different thing. And depending on what your goals are, it makes a difference in how you're going to be leading that team. And it's important. There are times when an authoritarian style is needed. Very often when it's a young team, when it's a team that doesn't yet have experience, perhaps we've got a bunch of very young, straight out of university people that are joining this team. They're all juniors, and they don't yet have that work ethic, that particular culture that we need. And perhaps we need to have an authoritarian style and tell them and build that culture. Perhaps they're too young and inexperienced to be able to manage a budget or to be able to make decisions about large budgets or large projects, because they have a very big monetary impact for the company and simply will be too dangerous because of the lack of experience. So perhaps that is a situation where authoritarian style will be needed. Again, to give you an example, at the Kings, when I started, I run the team in an authoritarian style because the players hadn't won any championships. None of them had previously won a championship, so none of them understood what it takes to win a championship or what it takes to have a winning culture in a team. That simply didn't exist. That doesn't mean that they were bad people. They just simply didn't know. They didn't have that experience to draw on. Therefore, this is where the authoritarian style came in from me, and I defined exactly how we're going to do it. And that was the very first thing that I said to the guys. I remember when at the very first practice, I stood in front of them and said, if you follow me exactly, if you do exactly what I tell you, we will get to our goal. We will get to our end goal, which is a championship in a couple of years' time, and a winning culture, something that we want to build now. But you simply have to do what I tell you, and essentially what I want to hear from you is yes, coach, and that's it. So that's what the team needed at the beginning. And then, if any of you were at my presentation last year, you know that in the subsequent years, I needed to change that and become a more collaborative, a more democratic style of leadership, which is what we did. In order to achieve the second championship, which is what we wanted to do. So you need to look at what is your situation and decide, are we going to go in the direction of authoritarian versus collaborative? What types of people do I have with my team? And also myself. Am I the type that likes to work in a more democratic style, or perhaps even a laissez-faire? Perhaps you are completely hands-off, completely backed off, and you allow the team to make all the decisions and do all the work, and you're simply there serving leadership in order to just facilitate and make sure that they get everything done. Scrum environment is essentially bordering between laissez-faire and democratic, maybe even on a style of laissez-faire, where the Scrum Master is not there to tell you what to do. The Scrum Master is there to simply facilitate, open doors, and make sure that everything works together, but definitely does not assign, does not tell people what to do, does not take things off the board and assign them, off the backlog and assign them to individuals. An authoritarian style wouldn't work in a Scrum environment, because it just simply goes against the ethos of what we're trying to achieve in an agile Scrum environment. So this is something that you need to think about. Very next point on the slide, which I just mentioned, is agile versus waterfall. That's also another thing you need to decide. How are you going to be leading that team? Is it in an agile way? Is it in a waterfall way? Now again, one isn't better than the other. I know right now it's extremely trendy. You know, everybody wants to work, supposedly everybody wants to work in an agile environment. However, that's not for everyone. And also, it's not for every situation. There are situations which simply don't allow an agile environment because they need to be done in an iterative type of way because of, for example, regulation. I know there's even companies in Krakow that work on communications for the police and for the ambulance, on the radio communications. Now that cannot be done in an agile way because there are so many checks and along the way, and so many certifications that need to be obtained before any kind of a release. It needs to be done in a waterfall way, and that's just a fact of life in that particular environment. So you need to make sure that you understand that this is the environment that you're going to be working in, and make sure you have the appropriate people that want to work in that environment. And again, don't presume that everybody wants to work in the same style as you. If you want to work in an agile way, perhaps there are people that don't want to work in that environment, that prefer to work in the waterfall. Again, it doesn't make them bad people. It just means that they want something slightly different. You personally also might want to work in a waterfall way. You're more comfortable in that, you feel like you have more control. And also, like I said, the project or the particular aim that we have, the goal that we have, the definition of a win requires waterfall. So maybe that's what we should be implementing. But that decision needs to be made at the beginning when we first deciding on how we're going to put together this team. Last one I've put here is Scrum versus specialization. This is I've specifically done this in a kind of a general way. Scrum generally means that we have multiple skills within a team. In a Scrum team in IT, we'll have some programmers, we'll have some QAs, we'll have some designers within one team, so that all things can be managed within a sprint within that team. But you could set things up in a very specialized way, where, for example, it's a team of just one skill. It's just programmers, or it's just designers, or it's just architects that work in that team, because that's what the company environment requires, or again, the goal that we've set, the definition of the win, requires that specialization to be put in place, that it's just a specialist that work together. But again, this needs to be decided and defined at the very beginning, so that you know what kind of people you're going to be recruiting in within your team, or how you're going to be assigning tasks. And lastly, or maybe at the very beginning, look in the mirror. A lot more difficult than it sounds. You need to look at yourself and decide what type of leader you are and how you want to lead a team. Many studies have shown that our character is constant. Yes, we can adapt to different situations, but essentially, in a difficult situation, when we need to put out a fire, we will revert back to sort of our original color, using the DISC methodology. So if you're a person that likes to work fast, strives in that environment, you'll make fast decisions. Whereas if you're, more of a green person, you're going to be more analytical. You're going to, even in a situation when there is a fire, you're going to stop. You're going to analyze more instead of acting. You need to understand that about yourself. You need to understand that this is how you like to work. So you need to make sure that whatever culture you're going to build, that's the culture you're comfortable in. If you like to work very, very, very fast, and in fact you like to have control, then perhaps deciding to have a democratic system might be difficult for you, because it's going to be an everyday struggle for you, where you're going to have to try and remind yourself every single day that, oh, back off, let the team decide, because your nature will be to try and make the decisions yourself, because it will be simply quicker if you just do it yourself. If that's the case, then perhaps you should be leading a team in an authoritarian style. Again, doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that this is who you are, this is how you get the best results, and you make sure that you surround yourself with people, or that your team is people that will perform best in that particular environment. So it's very important to do that. Okay. One thing I forgot, please make sure if you have any questions, use the platform and post them in, and I will see them in the chat window, and I'll definitely answer any questions that you have at the end. So please feel free to ask any questions, and the moderators will pop it up on the screen for me at the end. Okay, moving forward. So we've done the winning, we've done the building. We have the two major parts, and okay, and now it's the next thing. Now it's the actual building. Okay, it's kind of funny how we're going backwards. First we've done the building, we've decided what the winning, what the goal is. Then we decided how we're going to be doing it. Now we need to start building it. Okay. Again, it sounds like it's the easy part. Actually, it does become a lot easier if you have the other things in place. If you know what your goal is, if you know how you're going to be obtaining that goal, what kind of methodology you're going to be using, how you're going to be leading your team, now building it becomes de facto relatively easy, because you already know what types of people, what types of characters, what types of skills you need in order to make it happen. So you need to look at your team structure and your recruitment. So the first one is you need to put together a plan. What is going to be your team structure? How will your team look? Will your team be all juniors? Like I mentioned before, if it's all juniors, you probably would have defined all of this in your plan of what is your goal, how you're going to get there. You're going to think, well, it's actually a relatively easy. You don't need experienced people in this, so you'll build a team with all juniors. Perhaps a team of all seniors, because it's a lot more complex problem, and this is the way you're going to run this team and put it together. However, please remember one very important thing: when you have a team of all seniors, de facto none of them are seniors. In order to have seniority, in order to be a senior, you need to have somebody that's of a lesser seniority in the team next to you. So you need to have seniors, regulars and juniors, in order to feel those are the different levels. And this isn't about telling other people what to do. It's about that difference in experience, in years of service sometimes, but usually it's about experience, about seeing more things and different ways of solving problems. It could be a mix of seniority. It won't be just one level. It won't be just, for example, juniors or regulars. You could decide to have a whole mix, a couple of seniors, a couple of regulars, a couple of juniors, in order that they mix and have different approaches, so that the juniors have a path and can always look up to somebody within the team. Okay. Also, you need to think about, is it going to be a mix of skills? Like I mentioned before, is it going to be like a Scrum team, which has different skills within the team, or is it going to be specialization? All of these things you need to map out before you start any kind of recruitment. Okay. The next one is you need to think about, will this be a flat structure or a pyramid structure? How will you actually run the team? Will you have a pyramid structure? So for example, you are at the top, and then you have a couple of either a team that's helping you, or a senior that's kind of your right hand or a left hand person, and then in hierarchy below it. Or will it be very, very flat? Everybody's very similar. You're the only person that's leading this, or perhaps you're within the team, kind of another the turquoise concept, where everybody's at the same level. Like I said at the beginning, A Scrum Master isn't the boss of the Scrum team. It's one of the members of the team that just has slightly different responsibilities within that team in order to make sure that it all moves forward. So that again needs to be defined. What will be the structure? Will it be flat or will it be pyramid? These are going to be relatively easy questions to answer if you've already done the winning and the leading part, because you've already defined pretty much what you want to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, and now this is just how. Okay. So we've done that. We've defined our team structure. We know what it's going to be like. We know whether it's a pyramid or whether it's flat, or this is in place. So now over to recruitment. We start recruiting people. How do we do this? So this is an important part for me. I have two major rules when it comes to recruitment. First of all, I do the personality check. Personality to me overrides technical ability in a huge way. I always make sure I have two separate interviews, a technical interview and a personality check, which are completely separate interviews, never done at the same time, never done in the same, even I try not to have them in the same day, I try to have them separately. Okay. Which one comes first is kind of irrelevant. You could decide to do a technical interview first, make sure the person has the technical skills for the job, and then do a personality check. And then if the person doesn't have the technical skills at all, doesn't even get to a personal check, or the other way around, do the personality check, and if the person fits culturally with the team, then you double check the technical aspects. Now, what am I talking about when it comes to the personality? This is a cultural check. Does this person fit to the team that you're building, to the existing people with the team, or to the ethos that you're building, to the culture that you're building, and the type of team that you want? If you've decided earlier on that your team is all about collaboration, a lot of collaboration, a lot of sharing, full transparency, you need to make sure that you're not hiring an individual contributor, somebody that likes to work as an individual contributor, that kind of holds the cards close to their heart and doesn't really share their work. Again, it doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that they probably won't fit within the type of team that you're trying to build. You also need to make sure that you know what kind of things you need. For example, let's say you already have a team that's heavily loaded on people that are a little bit older, and you decide that you want a couple of younger people to try and have a mix of ages within the team. Or perhaps you realize that your team is heavy on guys, too many guys on the team, so you want to have a few females in the team to balance things out. Or the opposite, you have a team that's mostly women, and you want to have a few guys to have balance. Diversity is a very, very important one, very important aspect of creating a team, and it's not about being trendy, and that's very important. It's not about checking off boxes and saying, oh, I need to have X amount of people of this background, of this color, of this religion. That's not what diversity is. Diversity is about the diversity of thought. It's about making sure that you have different ways of thinking within your team, because if everybody thinks in the same way, they're going to basically always solve problems in exactly the same way, and you're never really going to move forward or do anything innovative. Just because you have a man and a woman, that doesn't mean that you've solved diversity. Okay? They could think both in exactly the same way or in a very similar way and approach all problems in a very, very similar way. And again, you're just going to have cookie cutter solutions every single time, and you're going to be surprised why don't I have any innovation or any different solutions. So diversity is about making sure you have people that think in different ways, approach problems in different ways, and offer different types of solutions. And then it's your responsibility as the leader to make sure that all of those are embraced and taken into account when driving forward and driving solutions. So that's the thing. Now, the other thing, if you see a little note here, river versus stream. This is also a very important aspect when you're building a team. When you're building one, when you're recruiting, and you're interviewing somebody, you need to feel whether this person has a strong personality versus a lighter, more collaborative personality. And this is why I use the analogy of a river versus a stream. If your team is just bonding, is just starting, then it's still a stream. It's a very, very gentle stream, maybe not even yet a stream, just some water trickling along. If a strong personality comes in, imagine sticking a boot in that water. That boot is so strong that the water isn't strong enough to actually go over it, flood it. It has to go around it. So you need to keep that in mind. If you hire a very strong personality into a team that is still forming, that one individual could change the culture of the team completely. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes that's exactly what you want. But there are also situations when that's not what you want, because you want the team to be more collaborative, and you don't want one person to overpower the rest of the team. So you need to keep that in mind. And versus a river, where if the team is already strong, then no matter how many shoes you stick into the river, it's just going to carry on going. I faced this with the Kings at the very beginning. When I was building that culture, I wasn't yet ready to bring in, for the lack of a better word, troublemakers, people from a difficult background that needed direction, needed discipline, because the team didn't have that yet. It was still building. So therefore, I didn't recruit those types of people into the team. But once we build a strong culture, once we build a strong leadership, captaincy, and so on within the team, then I actually actively went out into troubled areas of the town and looked for people that had difficult backgrounds, that came from difficult households and did some bad things in their lives, because I wanted to help them. I wanted to give them really strong culture, because I knew that the team was strong enough to then keep them on the straight and narrow. The positive pressure from the other team members, that strong current of the river would lead them in the right direction. They wouldn't be able to veer off into the negative aspects of their life. And it's the same thing happens in business. Once your team is strong, then you can afford to bring in somebody that needs to be controlled by the team and then direct in a particular way, because they're a little bit too wild, let's say. So that's the personality aspect. The second one is in exactly how I do it, is I believe in the 30-minute rule. I never hire anybody that I can't speak to for 30 minutes. Just simply talk. And it's not asking technical questions. It's not asking questions about their background, where they worked, where they went to university, and things like that. Just a simple conversation about things that they like, about their passions, about their hobbies, about maybe even the weather or the latest things in the news. Just a conversation to see whether we're able to communicate. Because I believe if we can't communicate right now at this interview stage, then we won't be able to communicate in a difficult situation when we have high pressure timelines and things to deliver, and we really need to solve something. Then it's going to be even more difficult. And lastly, we simply won't enjoy each other's company if right now we can't have a chat. And please do remember, you're going to spend a lot of time with your team. You spend a lot of hours at work with your people. So why not have people that you can actually converse with? Now, what's important, and I remember somebody at a conference said to me once, yeah, and that's why you build teams of guys of the same age. I said, no, that's absolutely not what I mean. It's not about hiring people that look like me, sound like me, and act like me. Absolutely not. That's not diversity. All I want is people that I can communicate with, that I can converse with, not people that look and think like me. Okay? In fact, I don't really want people that look and think like me, because I already have myself. I want something different. I want people around me that are going to bring in different ideas, different solutions, different approaches, and that do things better than me. But I have to be able to talk to them. I have to be able to communicate. So that's the crucial aspect. Have that conversation, a loose conversation, to see if you can communicate. Because if you can, and if you can have a good conversation for 30 minutes, then there's a good chance you'll simply enjoy working with each other in the future. Okay, so those are my tips for recruitment. Now, what's important? This recruitment aspect is also very important when we're taking over a team. It's easier to build a team when you know you've defined your winning, you've defined your leading, and now you're simply going to the building aspect and you're starting from scratch. That's easy. It's a little bit more difficult when you're inheriting a team, taking over a team that's already in place, as a new hire, for example, as a new leader, or when you've been promoted into leadership position. And that's one of the things that we work on at Leaders Island, is helping young, newly promoted leaders into leadership positions. It's one of the most difficult things to do is when you've been promoted, when you're very, very good at your job, you suddenly get plucked out and put into a leadership position, into a role that you don't fully understand or are prepared for. If you're a great programmer, if you're a great salesperson, if you're a great product owner, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great team leader. And very often we'll take those people and just simply throw them into leadership positions without fully equipping them. And that's something that we work on with you at Leaders Island, where we try and help you in that journey and really get you prepared to be a good leader for your team. And it's not a 5-minute process; it takes a while. We have a great 4-day program that does this. Now back to the aspect when you're taking over a team. You need to do that recruitment part as well. Now, what I mean by that, you need to actually have a conversation with each one of the people in your team, the team that you've taken over, the team that now you're going to be leading, to understand each one of them, to understand their personalities, to understand where they are, to understand what they want, and what are their passions and their aspirations, what gets them going. Because if you understand that, then you can structure, because you will build a new structure or restructure the team in order to make it in your vision. You will then understand where you can place people and which tasks you can put with each person. Because if you have somebody that is really creative, really passionate about working on new things, if you suddenly put them in charge of daily reporting, that might be essentially a boring job for them, and you're not going to get the best out of them. Whereas if you have somebody that really likes to have things ordered, really works well in structured environment, then getting them and asking them to create things is going to be difficult. I remember the very last team that I took over. I spoke to the 2 people that were previously running the team, because there were 2 team leads. And I had a quick interview with each one of them just to understand who they are as individuals, what gets them going. And they both previously were team leads, but had completely different personalities. One was very much tech oriented, liked technology, wanted to move into technology, and that's what he really liked. And the other person was much more structured, organized, and had a great vision of the future, of plans and putting those plans together. To me, they were a perfect lead architect and product owner. And it was a natural thing for me to straight away offer them those positions, and one of them became the lead architect, because that passion for technology and the overall big picture view really helped him, and each day became fun. And the other person became the main product manager, the product owner, because of the great approach to roadmaps, to preparation of roadmaps, understanding which thing was dependent on another, and whenever we had to change a small thing here, what impact it had, and great conversations with stakeholders. And immediately from when they were team leads, there were many aspects of being a team lead that just made their life difficult. Suddenly they were in positions where they blossomed, and they were really happy with their new roles. And all came out of that 30-minute conversation, just seeing who they are as individuals and what they're passionate about. Okay. So that's it. Those are the 3 main things that we need to work on. Oh, and the very last one that's very, very important. Don't forget to recognize individual accomplishment. This is a very, very important one. Yes, there is no I in team, but there is in win. And we need to feel as individuals whenever we're within the team. So whenever you can recognize small things that the people do for the greater good of the team, and also for making them better as individuals, please try and recognize that. It's very important. Even a simple thank you, maybe some kind of a sticker, maybe a kudos points, maybe the prime seat for the next month, by the window, which everybody wants. Maybe a Friday afternoon off, and the rest of the team will make up those hours. Whatever you can do to recognize individual accomplishments is very important. I do that with the Kings, as you can see on this poster. the little stickers that the players get for individual accomplishments, and they get to put them on a helmet. And the idea is that the more individual accomplishments we have, the greater team we will have. And these individual accomplishments are the bricks that build strong foundations for the team for us to win a championship. So then, and the last part when it comes to leading, which is very important for me, is the presumption of competence. Trust your team. Once you've recruited your team, don't let your best players sit on the bench. If you recruited somebody that has gone through all these interviews, have shown they're capable technically, don't have them sitting on the bench. Have them doing real work. Don't say, oh no, you can't commit any code until month 6. Come on, let them commit a lot earlier. The earlier they can commit some code, the better for everybody. Okay, and checks and balances, not micromanagement. Find ways to make sure that people are going in the right direction, but not micromanagement. The other one is personal responsibility for management. I take things very, very personally. If somebody leaves the organization, then I take that as a personal failure. Either I didn't hire the right person, and that's my fault because I should have gone through the proper hiring process, or something along the line changed in the career path of this person that made them want to leave the organization, or worse still, the organization have to separate them from their job, and that's again a failure on my part. So I take that very, very personally, and if I ever have to fire somebody, I see that as my fault, not as the fault of the individual. It is my fault. And like I said, I missed something along the line. I either hired the wrong person for the role, or something changed along the line in their career path that I should have seen and I should have made better. Okay, culture fit first, technology second. The culture is the most important part. Technology, you can always go on a training course. You can always learn more technical skills. Culture, you are who you are, and that's very important. Okay. So those are the key takeaways that I hope you remember from this presentation. It takes 3 things in order to build a team, in order to have success. Winning and championships and success is not an individual thing. It's a team thing. There are no more individual sports. When you look at it, even in the individual sports, all those individuals have teams around them to support them, from tennis through athletics to full team sports. There's always a team around you that's supporting you, that's working towards a goal. And all those teams require 3 things: the winning, the building, and the leading. Okay, define your goal. What is going to be winning? What is going to be winning? What are you trying to get to? Build it. Have the 30-minute rule in your interview. It's important to really get to know the individual before you hire them. And the leading. Firing is your fault, not the team member's fault. If you take that as a personal responsibility to make sure that nobody ever gets fired from your team, then you're halfway to the success. So those are the major things. Thank you very much. So to answer the last question, is winning about luck, art, or preparation? It's mostly about preparation. If you prepare, if you put things in place, then the likelihood of winning is much, much, much greater. It's definitely not an art. It's preparation. There's always some luck in place. As every athlete will tell you, you always gotta be lucky. But most championship caliber athletes will tell you that you make your own luck, and that's through preparation. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, then I'm all ears. Okay, where do we start? How do you rebuild your team's trust when you have failed as a leader on the road to victory? Oh, ouch. That's a difficult one. First of all, you need to analyze why you failed. You need to understand why you failed, and then do an honest, I want to say it, there's a Polish term, but really understand what things you did in order to fail, but also what things you did in order to lose their trust. And then you have to start rebuilding and tell them exactly what you're going to do in order to rebuild the trust. Don't don't presume and don't think that you're just saying, look, I'm going to work harder to regain your trust. That's not going to be enough. You say exactly what you're going to do in order to build their trust. I'll give you an example again from sports, because it's just a quick one that comes to my mind. When I changed my leadership style and said I was no longer going to be an authoritarian coach and I was no longer going to shout at my players, it wasn't enough that I said to them, look, I'm not going to shout at you, I'm going to support you. I needed to show it to them. I really needed to make sure that they saw, in a situation where usually I would have had a go at somebody for doing something wrong, I stopped everybody and I supported that player, explained what they can do better, and showed them a different way of working. Okay? You just have to show and show and show. Next one, let's have a look here. Magdalena, the question. Any recommendations, tips for how to approach this strong personality within the team that is still being built? Yes. First of all, as you build in a team, decide whether you want a strong personality or not. If that strong personality is already in place, you already have them as part of your team, and you don't really have an option, it's very important to sit down with that person and make him understand. Sometimes these people have strong personalities, they don't even realize that they're the loudest, strongest person in the room, and how much they influence the rest of the team. Sometimes they like that, they know exactly what they're doing, but either way, you need to make them understand, hold up a mirror to them and say, look, with this strong personality comes responsibility. People are looking to you, and now what are we going to do with it? Is this going to be a positive aspect of the team, or are you going to be destructive and you're going to destroy the team? Because a strong personality can be incredibly useful, incredibly positive for a team if the person understands that they have that strong personality, understands that they're the strongest person in the room, and will use that in a positive way, and they work in order to build everybody else up. But usually it needs to be an honest conversation with that person, one-to-one conversation, so that you both understand what is the situation and both have a goal. And usually what you want to do is you want to get that person on side and get them, look, you're going to be part of building this team, of building this culture, of going in a particular direction, so jump on board with me. Next question from Grzegorz. Mix of seniority, did you mean that it is always beneficial to have a mix of experience levels in the team? We usually work in small teams consisting of 2 to 3 developers plus the rest of them. In such a small group, it's sometimes difficult to have a mix of levels. And also sometimes 2 senior developers is the only team estimated to be capable of meeting a goal. Would you have any advice on this? I cannot say that always this way or always that way. It all depends on the circumstance, but it ultimately depends on what goal you have. Sometimes you will have a situation where you have 2 developers, that's the only resources that you have. But again, it goes back to what I've just said, a conscious understanding of where we are. Sitting down with those 2 people and say, look, you're the team of 2. In this partnership, you're going to be working, or the 3 of us, because you're in as a team lead. It's not always that a mix of seniorities is the better solution. No, sometimes exactly the same level of seniority can accomplish a goal because of the structure, because of the goals that we have and the time periods that we have, and so on. So no, you can't always say that it has to be a mix. It has to be appropriate to what you're trying to achieve, and that the answer to that is almost how long is a piece of string. It changes depending on circumstances. Okay, next question. What is the best method to define what type of leader I am? I'm afraid that many of us don't have this knowledge and use these random methods that are not coherent with the personality. What can be read as unnatural leadership? Come over to a training course with Leaders Island. Horrible sales piece. Yeah, I suppose it's easy for me to say look in the mirror because I've got the experience and I've been in various leadership positions, so I can try and understand myself. there's many books that you could read about business. But to be honest, I can't recommend a particular book to read because I haven't read any of them. None of the things that I've talked to you about today come from a book. They all come from experience. So what can you do in order to get that kind of experience, the kind of experience that I have? Find somebody like me, find a mentor. I guess that will be the very first step to trying to understand who you are as a leader. Sit down with a mentor, not a coach. A coach will simply ask you questions and try and get you to figure things out and not give you the benefit of experience, because a coach doesn't have necessarily leadership experience, but a mentor will. Find somebody that's been there, that's done that will agree to be your mentor, and ask that person questions. Ask about their career path, how they got there, and get them to help you hold up a mirror to you so that you can start understanding who you are. I can almost guarantee you that a good experienced leader, after speaking to you for 10 minutes, will understand what kind of character you have, what kind of leadership skills and potential you have, and will be able to tell you that because they've done it so many times, and they'll be able to tell you how they perceive you from that 10-minute conversation, and then you can carry on working to build that. So that's one way. One is get a mentor. Two, seriously, I know it's going to sound like a horrible sales pitch, but a training course with a company like Leaders Island, who uses people that have experience. At Leaders Island, we don't use trainers per se. All of us have normal day jobs. And so the people that do trainings at Leaders Island actually share their real life experiences. So one, find a mentor, very important. Two, go on a training course with a company that will try and help you along the way in those early steps of leadership and try and help you. As far as things, there are things like DISC where you can do a personality test to see, what kind of color you are. It's just a start to give you an idea of what your tendencies are. Gallup has a very big poll that you could do both from a free version that will give you an idea of what your strengths are, but also from a paid version that's over 100 questions that really delves deeply into your strengths and weaknesses and your strong points. All right, I'll do one more question. Does the difficulty of building a culture of winning, in your opinion, depend on nationality, or age, or other factors that characterize a given group? Or maybe the level of difficulty is always the same, and everything is in the hands of the successful leader? Awesome question. You cannot be ignorant to those things, to nationality, to age, to background. All those things are important. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to say, I don't want those nationalities within my team. That's not what it's about. What a leader needs to understand is they have each nationality, each age group, each background that somebody has brings with it a whole bunch of experiences that shape us. Each one of us has been shaped by the experiences that we have, both from a background and bringing up point of view, from the influences from media of the country that we're living in, from the people that we interact with, the people that we went to school with, the type of school that we went to, even down to our religion. It does have an impact in the workplace of how we think, how we approach things. The trick for a leader is to use all those things, to understand all of those things, and to use them in a positive way. Very important to understand cultural background. Very, very quick one for you is the further east that you go on the map of Europe, the more structured the society is in that country. When you start off, we're looking at Anglo-Saxon countries, England, France, Italy, and those, and as further east you go, more and more structure. So when you ask somebody from France or from England or from Germany to say, give me your opinion, for them it will be very natural for them to give you an opinion. If you ask somebody from further east, from somebody, for example, from, let's say, Eastern Ukraine, that when you say to them, give me your opinion, they will be a lot more hesitant because they're not used to their opinion necessarily being taken into account. That doesn't mean they don't have an opinion. It just means you have to find a slightly different way to coax that out of them in order to get them to share it. So when you're aware of all those things, you can really get people to flourish, and it's very important to understand all those differences. Diversity does work. You just have to be very conscious of it and use it in a positive way. Okay, we've definitely run out of time now, so thank you very much for your time. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Any of you, Dawid Ostręga. I'm on LinkedIn, and I don't think there's many people of my first and last name, especially when you spell it properly with a W, Dawid. If you'd like to link with me, I'm very happy to stay in contact with any of you. If you have any questions, please drop me a line. Also through the platform, I will answer any questions later on. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the conference.